Welcome everyone, Christine here with a discussion about Emperor Karl Franz in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires and how absurdly broken his campaign can be. Some people are going to look at this video and consider it a cheat, some people are going to consider it a cheese, some people are going to talk about optimizing the fun out of the game. Well, it's not a cheat because you're using the core gameplay mechanics, diplomacy, region trading, post-battle loot, sacking and looting settlements, all that. Those are core gameplay mechanics. You may not like them, you may not like the balance of them. There's perfectly fair arguments on that subject. There's perfectly fair arguments on the subject of balance in general, but that is not a cheat. A cheese, yes, I won't deny that, but as far as cheese tactics go in Warhammer 3, this is not really extreme level. Extreme level is when you set up a region trading loop in your campaign where you can essentially get infinite money in a single turn because you're able to constantly trade regions within a province. Works best in a province of 4 settlements. And just do it again and again and again and again and again, however many times you want, with the same faction no less. And get infinite amounts of money. Katrin can do this very damn well with certain factions, or quite a few factions. And the reason that works is because when you're trading a settlement to a faction, they'll give you the money they have, but you can also ask for money they don't have, up to 2,000 initially. It can go higher later on in a campaign. I'm not quite sure why. Is it based on the total income that a faction has? I don't know, is it based on the level of their legendary lord, research, settlement tiers? I have no clue. But all I can tell you is that it does go higher the longer you play a campaign. For certain factions that become really powerful. So maybe it's the number of provinces that dictates that. Regardless, you can get money the AI doesn't have for the sake of diplomacy. It's a bit weird, but that's not what I'm showing over here. You can use that, though, if you so desire. Or you can just do regular region trading and just get money that AI actually has in their campaign to make this work. Regardless, as far as optimizing the fun out of the game, I'm going to disagree on that statement completely. And the reason is, when you're talking about optimizing the fun out of the game, one example I think is a really good one is the Witcher series. I'm going to use that because I think it really does work. In Witcher 1, Witcher 2, and Witcher 3, there are certain ways to play the game where you're literally able to one-shot pretty much every single boss in the game. With the exception of a couple of expansion bosses in Witcher 3, but in Witcher 1, you can build up Igni very easily, actually, to just one-shot everything in the game and trivialize the entire game. In Witcher 2, in Witcher 3, alchemy builds allow you to one-shot pretty much everything. That is optimizing the fun out of the game. Here, you will actually have to play the game, and you'll have to play in an aggressive fashion in order to make this work. Because you will need to fight battles for money. Unlike with the High Elves, which, the High Elves completely break the game in a way that they have free and instant construction. Whereas for Karl Franz, it's a combination of instant construction that he can get in his campaign that is available to every Empire Legendary Lord, combined with his own unique faction mechanics. Specifically, open the gates for population surplus. So that gives you a lot of growth, combined with growth buildings, combined with Reichland, can make you really powerful. So what you're looking to do over here is to grow Reichland as quickly as possible, to get access to a variety of units, to get access to a variety of heroes, and to really have a lot more variety in your campaign than just regular, the same regular tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 units that you mostly use in a campaign when it matters, at least on Legendary. And this brings up a point. Why do this? Well, ever since Shogun 2, the way that AI has been handled in the game, and the way that the campaigns have worked, you start with a very limited beginning, and you have to build up. The way I'm sure the developers build these things, not necessarily the balance team, but the designers, is they're probably thinking to themselves, okay, we want players to grow slowly, build their economy, and in like 100 turns they win their campaign or something along those lines, right? Or 160 turns if you're thinking about Realms of Chaos. That is an absurd freaking number. But it's the number that they actually aim for, because that's how long it takes you to deal with Realms of Chaos. For the record, you can win a Realms of Chaos campaign, and you could even, when it launched, in like 30 turns. Like, anything past the first 30 turns in Realms of Chaos, 35 really, once you got your first soul, that was it, more or less. You won the campaign. Everything else was a waste of time. And that's been the case in a lot of Total War games, so you've always had this conflict. But basically playing the way the developers may have intended, where it's like you get a couple of buildings, different types, you know, some urine recruitment buildings, some economic buildings, anti-corruption buildings, or pro-corruption buildings, control buildings, deal with some rebellions, etc. That is genuinely the worst way to play the game. And it has been like this since Shogun 2. It's not exclusive to Warhammer 3. What people discovered is that if they wanted to actually win the campaigns and not be drowned by a tidal wave of AI which cheats their way out of this with vast amounts of experience, remember silver ranked armies in 20 turns in Warhammer 2 that would just continuously spawn, players discovered there were better ways of handling it. Which gets into the kind of playstyle that someone like Legend of Total War uses. Though he didn't invent it, he just excelled at it. Like, he made that really, really good. But it's the idea of limiting your recruitment option and going with a very small number of units and heroes that are very useful, or the most cost-effective ones. For High Elves, it's Spearmen and Archers. For the Empires, it's Archers, as an example, for a decent amount of time. Pistoliers, Outriders, all that kind of stuff, right? And then there's the third option, which is to grow your settlements quickly. You can obviously focus on growth as any race. It's not exclusive to Karl Franz. But Karl Franz is better at it because beyond the growth buildings, which I just sold over here because, yeah, I don't need them anymore, given the fact that, you know, I've gotten Reichland to tier 5 and every minor settlement to tier 3. Certainly don't need those anymore in this campaign. But you can focus on growth in any campaign. But Karl Franz is better with it because of Open the Gates. But it's not Open the Gates that makes Karl ridiculous. Though it does certainly make your growth situation much better than in many other campaigns. No. What every Empire campaign has access to are nobles. And when I say nobles, I'm not talking about lords, though lords can be nobles. Like, the noble trait reduces construction time by 25% in a region. For High Elves, it's in a province, by the way. A similar trait administrator. And they're also reducing construction costs. That's why the High Elves are ridiculous. You don't reduce construction costs, but you can reduce construction time by minus 25% in a region. This means that you can get instant construction. But when you begin your campaign, you might not have nobles. You might want to start a campaign over and over again. Unless you use the load save character system. So any character you have can be saved and then loaded up in another campaign. The effect might not be instantaneous unless you change regions. So for instance, if you move someone in a sea or outside the province and back again, you can get the effect to trigger from one turn. That reduces your construction time, and this stacks. This allows you to grow faster and faster and faster. But of course, for all the benefits that gives you, it is costly. The benefit, of course, is it unlocks more building slots. And with more building slots, you don't just get growth. You also get economy and military construction. So you escape out of the bad game that you have where you have to choose, are you going to get economy or are you going to get military construction, right? Because you can't have both. You're going to have to sacrifice something. And trying to, straddle the fence is just going to make you suffer. So you can either play the way the developers intended, which flat out doesn't work and hasn't for many years. You can try and play the way Legend does, or you can try and do something like this. Push growth. But how do you make money then if you are pushing growth and military construction with income buildings as a secondary factor? Because that's the point here. You grow your settlements quickly to get access to the diversity of heroes, units and just make your armies a lot more fun to use. You will still have to fight battles regularly. You might win the vast majority of them, but honestly, you can win the vast majority of battles with any army you can recruit in a campaign. Really, that's not the problem. If you're an experienced player, that's the norm. Like, I don't think I've played a campaign in years where 90% of the battles, over 90% of the battles in a campaign weren't victories. And whatever loss, and the vast majority of losses, even that case, where battles were like minor settlements that got attacked and I just couldn't be bothered to defend them. Or I just didn't have the forces at hand needed to deal with that. No, what you want to do in terms of getting money is take advantage of diplomacy in multiple ways. Region trading is one of them, but also declarations of war. So for instance, you start a campaign, you go, you gain vision with some factions, or you have some vision with some factions at the beginning of the campaign. Yes, my reliability just took a massive hit there. But you declare war on a faction, then a couple of turns later, you might even get a peace with a faction. For instance, in this campaign, I declared war on Draika very, very quickly, and now I can get a non-aggression pact. That is one of the features over here of regular diplomacy. It's always been a thing for many years, so it's not like Warhammer 3 reinvented the wheel in this respect. It's just, what's changed is the fact that you can now balance deals so you can get, a specific amount of money instead of trying to guess what you're going to get away with, right? You get a specific amount of money, so that's something you can use. Combine that with the fact that every battle you fight gives you money, then there's a post-battle option, which gives you money, then you can loot and occupy a settlement or sack a settlement and take it over, and then sell it. You get more and more and more money. That is important for the early game for any race. Certain races do better at this than others, Khorne, Greenskins, Skaven, etc. But for every race, you want to use this. Because instead of spending turns developing an economy slowly, you're better off not developing an economy, or developing it, sure, but you'll always outpace the economic potential your provinces have, because it just takes too many turns to develop certain things, like, free turns, 2,000 income, for a difference of 125 income. You can understand how many turns it would take. Over 15 to get your money back, to just break even. That is a problem with the way CA handles it. But the nobles can actually make even your economy work better, because you get these buildings constructed instantly. You can get your return on investment instantly. That's a great thing. What I do is I take over these settlements. I take Grunberg with Karl Franz, and I get a noble lord in Altdorf, then another one in Helmgard. I start getting Altdorf to tier 2. Then I force march Karl to Uberstrike while the lords from Helgard actually attacks, and then I deal with Bastan or Kemmler. It doesn't matter who you're dealing with, but the point is, you can get free, yes, all you need is free noble lords. To get four noble lords or heroes to do this, because noble isn't just a trait for lords. That's, by the way, available naturally in a campaign. You can start a campaign and have a bunch. You may have just one, or you may have multiple. Usually it's just one, right? It can be Huntsman General, it can be Generals in the Empire, it can be Archlectors. I don't think I've seen a Master Engineer be a noble in any campaign I've played. Usually they're master builders. That's another aspect you can use. You can reduce construction time for military support buildings, so basically every blue military building over here, or military support buildings, you can reduce that construction time by 1 turn, which means you can get those buildings faster, so you're not waiting multiple turns for these buildings to come out. Also, is that treasure? Yeah, that looks like freaking treasure, so let's go get it. Might be treasure. No, it's a Sea Corps. Might be a battle there, but very weak army. So with nobles, you get construction, but in order to fund that construction, you do need to do region trading in order to make that work. But here's the nice little aspect about Karl. Karl can guarantee guarantee confederation with other imperial factions, all other imperial factions. By default, it's just electric counts and you need 10 fealty. But later on, once you get Emperor of the Empire, which you don't necessarily need to rush, you can then get confederation with every single imperial faction as long as you have vision with them. Can be a bit tricky with Marcus Wolfhard or Volkmar, but you can send heroes or lords to scout around, right? You certainly will have the quantity necessary of lords and heroes to send them around. Like right now, my economy might be in the red, but give me a couple. But I'm not running out of money. As long as you have money for 1 or 2 turns, you're perfectly fine in a campaign. There's nothing that's gonna break your campaign. It's not necessarily important to play a campaign with your economy in the green. I mean, it's ideal to get it in the green, but it's ideal to also push ahead. And the thing about Karl Franz is guaranteed confederation through a system, through the prestige system. And the more you play the campaign, the more prestige you're gaining for every single battle. Fight a real army, you get thousands of prestige. It's ridiculous. But through that guaranteed confederation and all the cheats the AI has, the AI, you can surpass the AI in terms of getting tiers, settlement tiers, or you can just get a decent amount of variety of buildings and units. How far you want to take this, that's up to you. Like even a single noble, one that you may start with, or 2 nobles in a campaign can make a huge difference. But because of that noble, plus the guaranteed growth that Karl Franz, plus the guaranteed confederation, you have the luxury that very few other legendary lords do have, where you can let the AI use its cheats to do your work for you. Because one of the problems, one of the main costs in a campaign is actually buildings, not units. Like units are relatively cheap to get. The upkeep is not necessarily cheap, but actually building an army, not really that expensive. It's the buildings that cost a lot of freaking money in a campaign to get that are going to bankrupt you if you're not careful. Well, if you know that every single AI faction has a bunch of cheats, including the minor factions, which includes all the electric counts, if you know that all of them have cheats, and they're going to use those cheats, and they get free money, lower construction costs, much higher growth than you do by a default level, then you can just let them build provinces. For instance, Marienburg over here, tier 3, bunch of bunch of structures over here, turn 23. That was all on Marienburg. Marienburg built that. I actually deleted some structures, but I haven't really built anything over here in this province. That was all on Marienburg. You look at Korun, tier 4, bunch of buildings, decent amount of economy. You're using the AI's cheats against it. Now, does this trivialize the game? Well, it trivializes the early game. But the thing about that is you have many different ways of winning the early game. There's another factor to actually consider with Karl Franz, though, that makes him a better candidate for this. See, one of the things Karl does have is he has a set of quest battles. He has a quest battle at level 7, a quest battle at level 12, one at level 17, and then he has the Gotrek and Felix quest battle. So he has 4 quest battles, effectively. Each of those quest battles can give you like 10,000 gold or so. It depends on how many casualties you're getting, how well you're doing in those battles, how many enemies you capture and all that. But you can get easily between, like, the quests themselves give you like 5,000, the post-battle rewards like 3,000, 5,000. Like, you can generally get like over 10,000 in a single quest battle, or in all of them. And those are readily available in your campaign. So while you may start limited for money and reliant on declarations of war, your initial declarations of war, like declare war on Catherine's enemy, the minor Norscan faction she starts a war with. Declare war on the Black Pit Torques. Declare war on Artois, and so on and so forth, through Kemmler, and then maybe get some peace agreements for extra money. But once you get the quest battles, you get a huge heap of money, and then you can use that money to construct the buildings you want. And that gives you variety. And then once all of this is done, this is the end goal, by the way, of all of this. This is not just to like, oh, automatically win the campaign. No, there's a whole lot of campaign left to be played over here, gentlemen. But you'll play it with a better toolkit available. And you'll have to balance the cost of units. You'll have the flexibility to actually recruit different kinds of units. You gotta consider cost effectiveness, your income and all that. But it's a lot more fun to play a campaign when you're gonna recruit an army like this, as opposed to, I don't know, like an army of, let's consider what, like Midland, I'm just using toggle fiber, like an army like this. Mind you, that's really bad army. Jeez, that is an awful freaking army that they actually have over there. But if we look at, say, you know, maybe Taliban has a better army. But yeah, this is actually a decent enough army. But like an army like this could be effective, you know, full pistolier outrider army with some line holders. Not sure about the swordsmen. But versus an army like this or an army like this. An army like this is a lot more fun to use. More diversity, more options, more choices. It's more expensive. So it's not necessarily the most cost effective. If you want to talk about optimizing the fun out of the game, recruiting an army like this is never worth it. From an objective standpoint, it's too strong for what you're actually fighting at this point in this campaign. You're better off recruiting 2 armies as opposed to this one. But damn, it is a lot more fun to use this than an army of spearmen, crossbowmen, handgunners, outriders, whatever. I mean, you can still build those armies if you want to. But it's about choice. It's about using that choice. And it's giving you the flexibility of doing that. That is what makes Karl broken, if you will. Broken in the sense that, yes, he can absolutely break the intended game flow of the game, but also broken in the sense that his campaign can actually be freaking fun in a lot of different ways. Because one of the problems that we have in campaigns, especially if you've played a lot of campaigns in Warhammer 3, I have 3,000 hours in Warhammer 3, exclusively on Legendary difficulty. You get tired of it at one point or another. You get tired specifically of the repetition of the early game. Because it's always the same damn thing if you're playing naturally, right? It's always like a handful of unit types that you can recruit that are cost effective to recruit, and recruiting anything else is not worth the resources for it. You don't have a great variety of heroes. You don't have a great variety of unit types. Like, you might have some ranged units. Like, it's not worth recruiting cavalry in any campaign. Seriously, it's not. The reason it's not recruiting, unless you're Bretonnia, and even then, if you could recruit good infantry as Bretonnia, I gotta tell you, it wouldn't be worth it. The reason you don't want to recruit cavalry is because, one, it requires a building slot that you may not have, the cost of the building itself, and it's consuming army slots that you could put in ranged or melee units. Why would you spend so much on ranged and melee units? Because sieges. Cavalry is not great in sieges. You can't ignore the many hiccups this game has. You have siege battles, a lot of them. They've reduced, they eliminated the minor settlement battles, but that was never really the issue. It was all the sieges that were the problem. And sieges are just a miserable experience to deal with, but they kill a lot of the actual army variety by the inherent design. Unless you have an army strong enough that you can win those sieges even if you don't have the most optimal army for them. But if you're playing, Kislev, for instance, recruiting anything in a Kislev campaign outside of Kossars and armored Kossars, maybe some Streltsy, is just a waste of time. Like little Groms, if you ever get to tier 4, good luck with that, playing naturally. But it's just not worth it. So you end up with a lot of units that can be fun to use that you never recruit. Cost effectiveness, limited build slots, different buildings that you gotta recruit. And that is where Karl really comes in. He's not the I win button that the High Elves are. By the way, weren't they supposed to fix that with the patch? Or whatever, maybe I do need to start the new campaign because I guess the patch just came out. It's not like the I win button of the High Elves. Like, the High Elves have free construction as well, besides instant construction. And you're cheesing the load save character system to get lords and heroes that bypass the influence system. That is completely breaking the game. That is outright cheating, if you will. Recruiting a lord or hero that could have that trait naturally and you would pay the same cost That is not breaking the game. And you still have to pay building costs. So I really have had a lot of fun with all of this, actually. Like, I've played several campaigns with Karl already with this, and it's been quite a hell of a ride with it. Like, sure, I might not put a lot of diversity in Karl's campaign, and the early turns do suck. Still, like, having to start a campaign every time and always doing the same, going through the same motions every single time, that is not exactly fun. But once you overcome that, there's a lot of fun to be had, right? Because you don't have to... With instant construction, you don't have to wait for settlements to be built to a higher level until you can unlock the good stuff. You can just unlock the good stuff instantly. You can make a province, an investment in a province, instantly worth it. It's actually quite an important thing, because the construction time of like major main settlement buildings and the actual buildings you're looking to construct in a settlement just kill the value of so many provinces in the game. If you bypass, and it's about bypassing that system, you bypass that system, suddenly the value of building up a province goes way up. And you don't necessarily need to go wide. You can play in very different ways, right? You want to play it more slowly and tactically if you want, you can do so. You want to be an aggressive expansionist, you can do so. I mean, you'll benefit from fighting battles, as many battles, but you don't need to conquer half the freaking map in 50 turns. You can still do so if you want to, but you also have a lot more choices and variety on your plate than you ever did before if you ignore something like this. So yeah. Use Noble, use the instant construction, use the population surplus from Open the Gates, use the guaranteed confederation for Karl. And by the way, you can improve all these machinations through the Emperor of the Empire. That makes them even more ridiculous. I wish there was one, and there was a way of, like, I wish there was an electoral machination that reduced construction costs by like 20%. That would be fun. Sadly, there is not. But still, even what we have right here does make things better. Like, you can build an army very quickly. Like, that's fun, right? Like, just building an army quickly, not having to wait multiple turns to just build it up, not being burdened by units that take multiple turns to recruit, which, by the way, is a crappy system, always has been. Just being able to construct an army quickly through electoral machinations using nobles for instant construction makes the campaign a lot better. Questine signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications.